Bonterra makes software for the greatest social good, propelling you and your mission to its peak impact so that you can raise more, match more, grant more, help more, and really ultimately do more good. We've brought together the powers of every action, network for good, social solutions, cyber grants, and more to help you achieve that greatest good. And we really feel like we're uniquely positioned and incredibly optimistic about how we can help move the needle on social impact overall. And for you all, it's really that we're on a mission to help you increase efficiency, optimize your supporter interactions, and raise more money, which I know is why probably many of us are here today. So if you're curious about Bonterra, curious about our tools, I'm going to put up a quick poll on the screen for you all to fill out so that we can say, if you want to learn more, we'll get in touch with you all. We'd love to kind of learn about your organization and see if we might be able to help you move your needle towards impact. So I will leave that up for just a moment, and then I will let our wonderful speaker take over and introduce herself. We are lucky enough to be joined by Kimberly O'Donnell, who is our Chief Fundraising Officer here at Bonterra and is a crazy wealth of knowledge. If that title doesn't give it away, Kimberly has been in this space for forever, done so many webinars with me, with us, and is just such a wonderful human to learn from. So Kimberly, I'll let you give your more formal introduction, but really appreciate you being here with us today, and I'll let you take it away and sit in the back now.
Thank you. Hi, friends. Hi, everyone. It's great to be seeing all of these amazing organizations that are attending today. They're posting in chat. Folks from all over the country. I am coming to you from the Washington, D.C. area where the cherry blossoms are in peak bloom and they look amazing. I was just at Bonterra's offices yesterday in DC, and oh my gosh, it's just so gorgeous driving into work. So anyways, today we're going to be talking about 3 changes to make now for future fundraising success. We're going to be diving into some data, some best practices, and really thinking about what is happening in the world of fundraising, in the world of marketing and digital tactics, and what that can mean to your organization. So we're going to talk a little bit about what that demographic shift means to your organization, 3 changes that you can make for success. These 3 changes come out of a white paper that we recently updated called The Future of Fundraising, 3 Key Changes to Make Now. So we will share that white paper with you. It has some great ideas and insights in it. And then we'll talk about how to put all of this together with your multi and omni-channel marketing approaches, address questions as we go. So feel free to drop them into the Q&A, and Amanda will mention them to me as we go. And so I felt awkward putting my face on this slide. Usually I co-present with others. I was like, oh, it's just me today. So here I am. Yay-hoo. And just, we're going to go to the next slide now. But just a little bit about me. I have worked in the nonprofit space for, gosh, almost 30 years now, and have been on both sides as an executive director of a volunteer center, working with lots of different charities, a chief philanthropy officer at a national association, worked at the 3rd largest charity in the US at one point. And I've also been on the tech side where I've worked at different tech companies. And so I've had a wonderful opportunity to engage with literally thousands and thousands of nonprofits and speak with them one-on-one about what works, what doesn't, where they get stuck. And I'm a certified executive coach. And so in managing our team of fundraising coaches here at Bonterra, we are able to really see what is working today and then be able to come out and share how that can apply to your organization. Bonterra actually has about 25 fundraising coaches that are working one-on-one with thousands of charities across the country and globe right now. So anyways, we're going to dive into some of these key themes. And one of them is around the demographic shift in giving and in the US right now. So this infographic came from Forbes, and it just gives you a quick overview in terms of what's been happening in the last 30 years. And what you can see is that our aging population is growing. Probably no big surprise there. We know that. We know that there are a lot of baby boomers. One of the things we also know is that there's going to be there is right now a major transfer of wealth from the boomers to their often their family members. And so that's a big thing that is affecting giving and also just the way in which our gifts are coming towards us, right? So as we sort of think about this demographic change in giving, Rand states that the birth rates have declined in the US, that the average American family size has fallen, and people are living longer. And so we can see aging population growing. We've got that $70 trillion in money that's going to be transferred over the next 25 years, primarily by millennials, and that millennials are making up 35% of the labor force, but they only own about 5% of the nation's wealth, which is actually down from their predecessors, the boomers, who when compared at the same age and adjusted for inflation. So let's just kind of pause with some of that for a minute. So millennials make up a strong percentage of the labor force, but they don't have equal wealth as what the boomers had back at the same time. So this transfer in wealth is big and huge, but it is not going to last forever. And what we'll see in future generations is that the transfer of wealth will be smaller because our population is also decreasing, and it's being buffered by some immigration that's happening and first generation families. Now, as we think more about these changing demographics and how they affect giving behavior, there is a blog by the Giving Block called 7 Ways American Demographics Have Changed. And it's a great blog. And so what I did was I took their 7 great ways. There's 7 ways that American demographics have changed. And I kind of built out what that means for giving here in America. And so let's walk through some of these things. One is that we are a more ethnically diverse country. And so as we think about that from a giving perspective, let's leverage that wonderful opportunity to broaden our donor base. There are a lot of organizations that get stuck for no, bad reason. They do get stuck, though, in mining their existing donor base for gifts. They keep on going back to the same people and asking for gifts rather than really trying to broaden and diversify their base. And so I challenge you as you think about this, how can you begin to cultivate relationships via many communication channels, through social media, through text, through events, through all these different approaches to really broaden your base of supporters first, because your supporters turn into donors, and also bring in more inclusive fundraising and engagement methods to those practices. I can remember years ago working with a very large charity that was really trying to figure out who their future donors. So they were doing lookalike modeling, and then they were trying to figure out, all right, these are who my donors are today. How do I distill that down by 2 generations and begin through social networks and through events and through other methods to nurture relationships with teens and folks in their 20s so that they know our brand by the time they're ready to give in a meaningful way. And that's a great approach and something for everybody to think about, like not who you have today and how to find their circle of friends, right? Like who you need to be talking to today for your donors 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road. And that's where when you are able to do that, then you are becoming a much more sustainable organization, and your growth efforts and goals can really be put into place with assurance, more confidence, because you know that you're going to be able to have those sustainers moving forward. So that's some thought around the changes in ethnicity as well as in age groups. Younger generations are impacting labor and politics. Boy, what does that tell me? That would tell me that my messages out might need to shift in some ways, and I need to think more about social and environmental impact and how I can bring those terms and themes and concepts into some of the ways in which I'm storytelling and sharing community partnerships that I have, focus areas of my organization. And really thinking about what's called newsjacking, right? Like what's current in today's news and how I can leverage that in an authentic way. Now, let's just be clear, like it needs to tie to your organization in some way, but being able to bring those themes and understanding and an empathy for what's going on in the world or in my local community into the ways in which I am fundraising, storytelling, and building advocacy for my organization. Another thing, traditional religions are less important. We've been seeing this for years, a decrease in traditional religious charities, but that has been offset in past years around other types of more generalized religious organizations and charities that are more national or global. But we've also seen an increase in overall nonprofits over this last several decades. And so just noting that where people used to tithe their giving to religious entities, they're just doing far less of that today. Another thing is around women based giving and male-based giving. Women today are more educated than men in terms of getting advanced degrees and control a third of the wealth. Now, they also give differently from men, and that I think is really fascinating when you are thinking about the asks that you're making to women versus men, and the way in which you're communicating impact. So as you can see here, women typically give based on empathy and men give based on self-interest. This might help them in some way. And this data is coming from the Women's Philanthropy Institute, which is an institute out of the Lilly School of Philanthropy. So, you know, if you want more information on that, please check it out. There's a ton of really great insight and research that's been done around women and men and their giving behaviors, and you can dive into that a lot more. Another thing is that our general population is aging. Now, something to think about with that. We know that there's going to be a big transfer of wealth, but we also know that people are living longer. People who are living longer generally will have more health needs, right? Which could be an added expense to them and could affect their overall giving in the future. So it's just a consideration that if you really are focusing on an aging population, they may not have the same ability to give that, say, those folks at that age might have been able to give previously. Does that make sense? Like, because there are more expenses involved with aging today, that may affect their giving. Now, not everybody, right? Like, I am just saying that this is a piece of the aging population, but certainly something for you to consider as you think about those individuals that sit within your donor database, as opposed to the general population. Another thing, more people are living in urban areas. So what does that mean? Well, giving, guess what? Is very different in urban areas versus rural areas. We have a coach at Bonterra that specializes in rural giving and can really focus in on best practices there. And then, you know, it's going to vary deeply in terms of how you might approach those messages and asks. So as you're thinking about your base of supporters and donors, think through this, how you break down some of these things and truly analyze what your base looks like today and what your ideal base might look like for the future. And then there's a significant wealth disparity. And what are we seeing there? Well, we're seeing giving growing through DAFs. You know, like in 2019, the top 1% of Americans earned 15 times more than the bottom 50% combined. That is a huge polarization of wealth in America. And we are seeing those who are extremely wealthy, or, you know, families who are affluent, are using vehicles like donor advised funds to give. And one of the things that we'll hear from is, you know, how do I deepen my relationship with those financial advisors and other folks at donor advised funds? What should I be doing to nurture those relationships? Because they're the ones that are talking to the families who have those donor advised funds about where they might want to give. And if you're not looking at that as a channel for future giving, you know, please do that and start diving into researching that a bit more. All right, so I'm going to take a poll. Let's just stop for a minute. I just threw a lot of data at you, a lot of insights. And you know, what this would say to me in my fundraising, with my fundraising hat on, is, all right, maybe I need to look at who my supporters and my donors really are. So when was the last time you analyzed your donor or supporter demographics? Was it within the last 3 months, last year, more than 2 years ago, or maybe you've never done it?
All right, I'll give folks a couple of seconds here to keep filling this out. But right now it looks like we almost have a completely even split between within their last 3 months, last year, and never actually being the highest of those three so far.
Okay. So folks, if you have never thought about analyzing your base, please do that. And there are great resources out there for you to begin to think about how to do that. If you are a Bonterra customer, you might want to leverage a coach to work with you to begin to do some of that data analysis. But you're going to have some great insights. And we're going to talk about what you might be able to do with those insights. So the first key strategy or key change to make now is to really think about how to optimize with predictability. And predictive analytics helps you do that. It helps you really dive into how you can make internal and how you can make better asks and also raise more money from the same base of people. So one is thinking about internal data that you have, what that next gift amount might look like. Live months means last year, but unfortunately not this year. Side bunts are some years, but unfortunately not this year. And RFM means recency, frequency, and money. How recently they gave, how often they were giving, and how many dollars they've been giving you, what that looks like. Those are things that you actually can pull from your databases often pretty easily, and you can use that to really target some of your communications and fundraising efforts. You could also leverage in wealth screening, which would be external data that you would bring in. And when you think about the external data that's available to you, it'll show you political and other charitable giving that they have. So you may think that this person is a major donor to you at $1,000 or $10,000, and you find out that they actually are giving $50,000 to another charity. And you're also able to see that they have the capacity based on the assets that they have, the hard assets that they have. They're a company insider with a publicly held company. You actually might be able to see their stock holdings, liquidity, that movement that they might have that will help you kind of understand whether or not they've recently sold a business and things like that. And you can also see some of the connections that they have. So that wealth screening data can really enhance your own giving data that you have. When you bring both of those things together, then you can score your entire file of donors or supporters, or we often will use the term constituents. You're going to be hearing me throw in different terms. Really, it's your base as your constituents or supporters. And you can then kind of suss out their propensity to give to your organization. There's a lot of other things that you can get from that, but that's just another example of it. Now, when we think about what's internal, external, both, what becomes a better practice and better insight for you is being able to take that data, segment these folks into groups, and begin to do more targeted messaging and asks to them. And then you can also begin to see when and how they're responding, and you can set up timing for these people as well. So you then become much more sophisticated in communicating through all your channels with your donors and those that support you. And then in the future, really just trying to be more proactive in real time. We live in a consumer world. Everything is coming at us very fast. And so nonprofits really need to be thinking about how they can up that responsive communication. It is no longer best practice to send a donor acknowledgement, a thank you note for a gift days after. It is, and by the way, the receipt that they get does not suffice as a thank you, right? And so, we need to be thinking about how to make this more responsive, how to leverage video. A lot of organizations for their mid to top level donors, they have ranges already set. They'll do a 10-second personalized thank you that different folks from their organization have recorded, and they'll send it to the donor within 12 hours or so. Not easy if they're making a gift overnight, but they're putting attention and focus on being more responsive, because that's the world that we live in. So you may be thinking about, all right, well, there's a lot of stuff out there, and I don't know where to start or how to take what we have today and build on that. So I went to our data scientist, Ben Miller, who is absolutely amazing. If you have been on any of the webinars with him in the past, he is just fantastic to really kind of brainstorm around what might be a less expensive offering, but still technology that can enhance the work that you're doing up to a higher level. So let's just pause for a minute and talk through this. You can go out and use free large language models, LLM. That's really what AI is, to summarize, predict, translate, generate, language and concepts like the free Chat GPT that's out there. You can also do for pretty low cost, and even on your own, that recency, frequency, money, that RFM segmentation. Google Analytics is, I think it's free or it's very low cost. You can leverage multiple social channels for your organization at, relatively low cost as well. And then you think about the medium cost technology that's available. And those are things where you could do some, DIY Excel models or analysis that maybe you work with. You could actually even you could hire someone through Upwork or through one of those like online, work portals, and, have them build out some modeling, some regression models for you. There are things like social media scheduling that you can set up and have automated. You've got your automated communications, your plumbing for your digital messaging. There are AI licenses, so Chat GPT Plus enables more people in your organization to use that LLM capability. You have things like AI-based voice transcription. Those are great for contact reports. If you met with a donor, you want to be able to record what just happened and what the next steps might be. And then there's things like, Chariot, which has donor advised fund integration. Chariot actually has many different integrations with lots of DAFs, so they then can help you work with your donors to donate to your organization through Chariot and make it a very seamless experience for your charity. Then what's at the high level? Integrated databases that have the sophisticated tools tied into it. It is your donor management system, your DMS, or those things that are added on, like at Bonterra, we have a number of different types of tools that you can plug in to really make your results impactful and integrated. Wealth screening can go up in price depending on the number of records you have and the type of data that you're pulling. You've got enterprise AI tools that are out there. There's automated, very sophisticated business intelligence tools. You may hire a data science team to work with you if your organization is larger. And there's also very sophisticated text messaging platforms that you're going to use to be much more responsive. So as you think about all this, there's really technology available to you at every budget to do something just a little more, right? And so as we think about this, I want to kind of pause for a minute and talk about how to get there, because that can be overwhelming. So I'm going to put my coach hat on and I'm going to say, hey, when was the last time you documented and audited your current processes? There's a lot of new turnover that happens, staff turnover that happens at nonprofits. So let's pause for a minute and think about what our processes look like, where they are recorded, and then diving in with your team and just taking a little bit of time. And maybe you do this, for 20 minutes during your team meetings every week for a month or for 6 weeks or something, but you actually just build it into what you're doing. And you stop and you go, what's working? What's broken? What feels like it's taking longer than it should? Who has access to this data? And what are our security protocols for it, right? So there's a lot here. I'm not going to go through all of these because you'll be able to read them in the PowerPoint later. But if you do opt to sit down and just go through that practice of an audit and just kind of thinking it through with your team and collaborating so that everybody understands we all own the data, we all own security around it, and you talk about your North Star, that kind of helps everybody level set. All right, this is what we've got. What else can we be doing? Okay, and then the next part is with the help of your team, draft your strategy, timeline, and milestones. Let's come up with a new path and let's talk about what we're going to be doing to kind of bring and fold in some new technology, some new ideas, some innovation. And I encourage you to share that with your leadership and with stakeholders so that everyone understands that, one, you're taking privacy and security very seriously. You're really thinking about what tools you need to grow and how you're going to enact an agile environment of testing and learning. And one of the things that I always encourage folks to think about is how to fail fast. And I love this quote from Tom Peters, which is test fast, fail fast, adjust fast. When you have to have such a huge buildup to try something new, you get stuck because everybody has to come on board to get there, to try that new thing. And then they have to adjust to all of it not working as well as you want. And that's going to happen when you're doing a data migration, right? Like whenever you're moving into a big database or something. But when you are trying to adopt new technology and new ideas for fundraising, try to boil it down into what we would call in the tech space, your MVP, your minimum viable product. What is this simple thing that you can do to take a step forward and learn from, and then get to your next, and then iterate your way through it? Oh, we're talking about, optimizing for predictability. And now we're going to step into your constituent communications and how you can automate for efficiency. And, here's what folks were doing back in the day. One was they were, looking at and executing campaigns based on the organization's timeline. We do a campaign every spring. We do a campaign for back to school. We do a year-end campaign. And we have these things, and they're all based on when my organization has time to do this, or when we have put this on our calendar. And they're going to send, big solicitations out via direct mail, maybe email, maybe via social, to their entire constituent file, right? Like everybody in your database or everybody who gave within the last 3 years, and everybody's getting the same communication. And they have very simple automations for welcoming new donors or lapsed donor, or, trying to get your lapsed donors, or, You no longer have the credit card information, so you're sending it for monthly gifts, and so you're sending out these, standard emails to everybody, and it's all happening based on your time frame. What's happening now is that it's just much more responsive. There's responsive fundraising, and that's all based on marketing automations that are often coming out of your donor management system and your direct marketing tools. And they're helping you be more responsive, to set up the plumbing and the communications that you need to have automated flows that are based on what that individual is doing versus what we are as an organization are doing. And so that's what the now looks like. The next is really around omni-channel marketing, which we're going to talk about in a minute, leveraging AI and machine learning, using constituent surveys more frequently to make sure that your data is fresh and that you're actually getting real time insight from your supporters, and really beginning to test, analyze, and adapt much more quickly. So what does that look like? Well, there is this curve, which is called the Rogers Bell Curve. Have you seen it before? Tech companies and marketing groups will use this curve, Rogers Bell Curve, to really think about where their customers fall in terms of innovation. So look at this, and so the curve represents customers. And so you've got innovators who are going to go out right away. The new thing is out there and they're going to go out and they're going to buy it, or they're going to test it, they're going to go. You got your early adopters, and then you've got the rest here. And so in 1991, but it's been adapted over the years, most recently, I think 2014, there is a book called Crossing the Chasm. And the chasm is this period, this place right here, where organizations, companies, but if you were to think about this as your donor base too, where you had to catch people, and you have to cross that chasm to bring those early adopters into the majority phase so that you can sustain yourself. And so that just kind of shows you what this innovation life cycle looks like. Now, what I find a lot of the time when I'm talking to charities is that charities are actually stuck in the late majority and the laggard space. They really wait till everybody else tries whatever it is that's out there, AI or some sort of fundraising best practice. If it's really, new and different, that in some cases organizations are using text so infrequently still now. And so they really are back here in the late majority and laggards. And what that means is that they're missing an opportunity to be present with the ways in which people are adopting new things. And so you're constantly playing catch up, or you're being seen as not as adaptive as the rest of society, right? Like one of those things that we have talked about before is around the concept of what we call subscription giving, and actually asking for monthly recurring donations as your first ask. Because we know that people have, 50% of people will say, yes, hey, I will, or it's a very high percentage, will say, yes, I'm willing. I love this cause. I don't just love this cause on the day that you've asked me for a gift. I actually believe in it, and I'm willing to invest in a monthly gift right out of the gate. But we often have our defaults set to a one-time gift on our giving pages or in our asks. And so we're missing an opportunity to really bring in a sustainer from the start. Anyways, so you've seen this innovation curve now. Let's just pause for a minute because I'd love for you to rate yourself. Where did you fall on that curve?
All right, looks like out of the gate, the majority of folks here fall within the late majority category. Give folks a couple of seconds to keep answering. And then it seems like we've got a pretty even split after that between our early adopters, our early majority, and our laggards. No self-identified innovators here so far.
Hey, thank you everyone for being honest, right? Like
Yeah.
that's a big part of it too. All right. So
Yep.
now that you know who you are, I want you to be able to think about where your organization fits on here. And if you are a leader at your organization, what message are you sending out to the rest of your team if you are in the late majority in the laggard phase? And you know what? It's fair to be in there because as a nonprofit, we are really, really afraid to misuse donor dollars. And so we're really, really afraid to take risks because in technology or in trying new things, because these are precious donor dollars that we cannot say, hey, we tried this and it didn't work out. Like, what would our board say? What would that say about me as a leader? And so it really creates a bottleneck, a barrier for organizations to innovate. And so think about it this way, because we're going to, and pause on that, you and your organization, because we're going to get back to that in a second. But I want to talk with you about this hype circle, because I find it fascinating. So what this does is it looks at an innovation that's out there and adopting it too early. And then what could happen is that you actually might give up on it too soon because it isn't working exactly how you thought. I mean, you thought it was going to be like the answer for everything. AI, oh my gosh, we can use that for everything. No, we can't. And we got to read through it. And we got to make sure that we're using it in a sensitive manner, right? Within our organization. And there is a great fundraising AI group now that you can go out and feel free to Google it. They're a wonderful organization that's beginning to think around the protocols and best practices and advice around using AI in a sensitive and thoughtful manner for organizations. But think about this as you look at it: adopting too early, giving up too soon, adopting too late, hanging on too long to old technologies that nobody else is using. Like, it is going to affect your productivity. So, that's the thing to consider. And when you try something and it doesn't work, and then you or everyone in your organization is often like, oh yeah, we tried that, it didn't work that one time. Like, we are missing an opportunity to learn today whether or not that might happen. And that's because we gave up too soon over here in that trough of disillusionment. So let's talk about how to get there when we think about automating for efficiency and building more innovation into the work that we do. One is understanding where you and your board and your staff are in that Rogers bell curve. Feel free to use that as an experiment with your team and with your board. Wouldn't it be interesting to see how they compare, how your board's thoughts and how innovative they are versus your staff? And you actually might find that your board is more willing to be innovative than you knew, and they could actually be a wonderful support system for you as your organization tries new things. And then also, given the hype cycle, how can you and your stakeholders adopt, innovate, and iterate more quickly? And then what resources do you need? If you've been on any of my webinars before, one of the things that I often will recommend is that an organization with their board set up an innovation budget. Why? Because we go back to what I said before, where charities, where nonprofits are afraid to misuse donor dollars. But what if you had an innovation fund? And everybody who gave to it knew that that is what you are using to test new technology, new program ideas. And guess what? What if your staff, your team, could actually ask for funds from your innovation budget to try new things? So you could empower your program team, your fundraisers, other groups within your organization to actually think outside the box in a safe way and test and learn every year, all year long. And what if your board became the first supporters of that innovation budget? And you ask them all to, give to this innovation budget so that you all can start testing new ideas safely. What do you think? Would that work for your organization? And if not, Coach and me will ask you, what is holding you back? What's holding you back? Or what's holding them back? And how can you have a frank conversation to just get rid of those blockers? All right, so there we go. And also, if you're not changing, what message are you sending? Look, we are tired. The sector is tired, overworked, trying to do so much. We're all recovering from the COVID years and seeing a lot of what is called crisis giving. We saw a ton of crisis giving around the social justice movement, around natural disasters occurring, around COVID, and all of the direct needs that existed at that time. And we're all still trying to recover from that. And guess what? Not all donors are continuing to give to those organizations because they were crisis dollars. So there's a lot going on, but innovation, testing and learning, and finding those opportunities to grow can really help. And so I love this Steve Jobs quote, which is, innovation is the ability to see, it's the ability to see change as an opportunity, not as a threat. So let's keep going into personalization and targeting. All righty. So how are you thinking about your fundraising? And we talked about crisis giving. Are you focused on and asking for people to give to today's need? We have this need at our organization for this program. And so when a person gives, they then feel like they're sparing $1. Well, I have $100 or I have $1,000 that I can spare to give you, rather than it being an investment in the future. And so what we're doing is we're designing giving around crisis giving as opposed to opportunistic giving, impact giving. And I really kind of think about this. There's a study called from Forbes, and it came out in February, the most recent version, 2024 State of the Nonprofit Sector. It's great, and it talks about the key things that organizations are struggling with: operating costs, staff capacity, lack of resources, all of this. We all have the same issues, but the way in which you are fundraising is actually evoking different feelings. There's a lot of research around this, but I'm just kind of pausing here so that you can think about this as you're analyzing your overall practices and how you are fundraising today, and whether or not you're able to build in some things that feel more like an investment. Because you got other charities that are giving, and this year, you have a lot of online marketers. Now, we normally would have a lot of online marketers, but guess what? This is an election year. So you're going to have a lot of noise out there as you're fundraising from the political campaign. And so you want to be able to plan your communications around that this year. You want to be able to use validators early in your giving, your campaign strings, to really reduce that giving friction. If people know that you're a great organization and that you have a high rating on GuideStar, they're going to feel more confident in giving to you. You can look at these things. I attended a fantastic webinar that MissionWire put on, where they had Sandy Hook's Promise and another organization on. And they really talked about some best practices. There are one or two in here, and then I also added a couple that we know work really well, which is having pre-filled forms for giving. Works extremely well. It actually has pre-filled giving forms, meaning they can already have their address and everything populated in it, converts to a gift 9 times higher than blank forms. And so, think about that as you look at your database and what kind of view you have of it. You can see here, if you also feel like you need fresh data on your donors and constituents, consider sending out a survey to capture updated contact information and ask them a few questions about their preferences, and capture a little bit more information from them. You'll know that the people who respond to you really care about your organization. That's one. And two, you'll be able to leverage some of those insights in communication socially and throughout your fundraising and overall communication efforts and board communications. I'm looking at the time, so I know that we don't have a ton of time left. I want to be able to get to some questions. Please feel free to ask a few questions, put them in the chat. But I also am going to remind folks that we live in a world today where people trust nonprofits less. There's some research out there that shows this. And so you want to be able to think about how you and your activities that you're doing are actually building trust among your stakeholders. And that's by showing community partnerships, really looking at what you're doing through a trust lens as well as a DEIB lens, being innovative and responsive in real time, and understanding the other thing. We talk about competitors, and I hear this a lot from organizations, but we actually live in a world where there is an abundance of support. We hear all the time about amazing acts of generosity. And so how are you looking at giving at your organization? And how is your team believing and celebrating the incredible abundance that you have and the acts of generosity that are going on? And how do you take all of that beautiful insight and share that with your stakeholders and your donors so that they feel noticed and it's clear to them and they feel united in your cause? All right, so we're going to move into multi-channel and omni-channel approaches really fast. And if you're less familiar with the term, I just want to be able to give you a quick definition. So a multi-channel approach is basically communicating on different channels, but you might have different messages going on. An omni-channel approach is having the exact same brand experience on all of them. It's the same message, and it's going to be in text, and it's going to be in your social channels and on video and on your website and all of that. So it's a very seamless experience for your supporters. And so that's the difference between a multi-channel and an omni-channel approach. We're going to ask a quick poll here, what you may be doing. So a single channel would be, I send out direct mail appeals, and that's what I do, with the fundraising campaign. And then if I'm doing social, it might be that I have a completely different message at a different time on that. A multi-channel is, we have a fundraising campaign going on. We are communicating through multiple channels, but there are different messages happening. Omni-channel is same message going out through all of our channels so that it's a seamless approach.
Yeah, and looks like most folks are falling into the multi-channel approach here, Kimberly.
Yeah, so I encourage you, changes to make is begin to get into that omni-channel mindset and begin to test and learn with it. Here are some ideas around how you can take your multi-channel and omni-channel campaigns and that approach and how they can feed into your larger fundraising initiatives. You can look at this later, but using video and text with personalization can really break through the masses. Taking smaller batches of communications and looking at them and segmenting them out based on their likelihood to respond, and segment groups and add more personalization into it can really help you. Test and learn with that. That's something that we offer through multivariate email testing, which means you're testing your subject lines, different messages. That really helps, and really helps you get real-time information so that you can, as you are moving through your fundraising campaign or whatever campaign you've got going on, you can adapt pretty quickly. There's also great, multi-series, multi-path recapture efforts that you can do for lapsed donors. So there's a lot of different things here. Another thing that I also recommend is look at your nonprofit heroes and follow them and gain ideas from them. There are some really, really awesome organizations out there doing things that don't have to cost a lot of money or take a lot of work, but are really creative. Sandy Hook Promise is awesome. They're an EA customer that really has done a lot of innovative things, and I love to follow them. I love following Charity Water. I think that they're got a lot. St. Jude always has really interesting and innovative ideas for fundraising. So you have the big ones, but then also I bet there are some in your local community, or there are those in your cause area. Begin to follow them and really take note of how they're communicating. And begin to, put all this together so that you've got your good, better, best scenarios. Now we're close to the end, and I just want to remind everyone why rinse and repeat isn't going to work this year, right? You came to this session for fresh ideas. Please don't go backward. Don't go backward. Stop and let's put all of this to good use, and really think about an audit and how to, inspire your colleagues to want to be part of your effort to test and learn, and really begin to contemplate your base of donors, who they are, and who you would like them to be. And then also begin thinking about planned giving as well. Because of COVID, there are a lot of younger people who have contemplated their legacy and are creating wills and things much younger than they ever have. And so having that planned giving as a focus will help you too. You can see the other things here. But what I would say is, and here are some of those little coaching questions for you. If you had a magic wand, what would be one new thing that you would try as you walk away from this webinar today? Where would you start? How would you ask for help? And who is going to hold you accountable so that you can build this into what you do? And then also, what else? What else are you missing? These are our key takeaways. I'm going to pause for a minute and see what questions we have, if we have any.
I haven't seen any burning questions come into the Q&A section yet, Kimberly. So if we want to go over those kind of key takeaways, and if folks have some thoughts, make sure you drop them in so we can get to them.
Yeah, and if folks want to share in the chat, I mean, I would love, I want to celebrate with you some of the new things that you've tried this year. So feel free to pop that into the chat so that we can go, hey, good on you. And because you are likely trying some new cool things, and we'd love to hear about them and acknowledge that there's great ideas out there. There are some really cool, or what worked for you this quarter after year end? Did you start a new welcome series that you thought was like super cool? And those kinds of things. So we're looking here at some questions that are coming in, right? I'm seeing them. One is, hey, what are some examples of how to use AI? It depends on your organization, but there are individuals who are using AI as a starting point for fundraising appeals or personalized communications to individuals. And so you could use that. You could even take previous appeal, put it in there, see what they might recommend. And then you go in and you would change it and adjust it for yourself. So it's a great starting point. That's wonderful. AI can also help and will help in the future in terms of being able to identify how to segment your base for success, really do some amazing modeling, et cetera. So there's just different approaches that you can use. For video thank yous, is there a nonprofit you recommend to get an idea of how this should look, or a favorite? Amanda, you want to talk for a minute about video thank yous? So I know you have some great insight into that too.
Yes. So video thank yous, basically what they should look like is they should be, between 30 and 60 seconds, right? Where you can either come in and give a really personalized shout out to a specific donor, right? Kind of use their name, let them know that, you're really grateful for that big gift or whatnot. Or you can do it to a group, right? So have a quick group shout out. That's a feature on one of our tools at Bonterra where you can say, hey, thank you all. I want to actually show you the impact that you're having here in real time, right? So I know we worked with a great client who they raised funds to build a gym for youth to do, to have like a boxing program, right? And so they took them on a tour of said gym and 30 seconds sent it out to thank those folks who had contributed to that campaign. So that's a couple examples of ways to use video, really just to show that impact more than say an email might be able to do, or photos.
Mm-hmm. Great answer. And Richard, to answer your question, which I love, is how would you tailor messaging based on donor demographics? So his organization works with LGBTQ plus businesses quite a bit. So if I were wanting to communicate and broaden a bit with that, or recognize the contribution that they're making. I might say, you know, we work with a number of LGBTQ plus led or focused businesses, and we truly appreciate the work that they're doing. And, you know, here's a couple ways that they've, you know, supported us. So you're recognizing them, you're noting that group as a group that you really enjoy working with, and you're celebrating and the contributions that they're making. You know, along the lines with Women's History Month, right? Like that's how you knew what's called newsjacking. It's Women's History Month. I'd like to celebrate all of our women donors. And, you know, maybe you acknowledge a few of them who are outstanding, or you go to your donors that are women, and you ask them for names of people who have inspired them from a philanthropic standpoint. Might be cool to have those stories, and you could put them through social, you know, so you could think about cause areas that can tie in that way. I mean, I'm spitballing there, but hopefully that gives you some sort of idea around that. How to do automation without having Salesforce as a platform or Blackbaud. You know, every action here at Bonterra has marketing automation built in. You would have to look, I mean, I would think that Blackbaud probably has some. It might be a little more costly for you to add on that way. But really, you would need to look at what tools might be a lower lift from an automation standpoint. You can do some social media automation where you can schedule your posts and things, and that's pretty mid-priced, lower lift. How long should a call to action video be? Same time frame as a thank you video? Yes. Short and sweet, depends on where you are messaging. If you're going to be on social, you know, like 10 seconds, 20 seconds, right? Not that long. And by the way, what's working today that I've heard about is direct to camera appeals from someone who has been affected or a board member. And remember, shake up those videos. Do not just have your executive director or one person doing all of those videos. We like to see the entire family of people that are wrapped around your organization. And that could be someone who's working in the program department. Sometimes it's not appropriate to have a service recipient. Sometimes it is. It just depends on what type of organization you are. It could be, you know, let's see everybody. Let's see the diversity that exists around your charity, and have those videos really show that and celebrate it.
Yeah.
We could keep going and going and going, and I wish that we could. I know that we're at time. I just want to thank everyone who has sat in on this webinar today. I hope that this has given you a little food for thought. Please reach out if you have any questions or need. We are here for you. And guess what? We're not just here for you, but like, I just want to applaud the fact that you've taken an hour of your time to pause and learn and contemplate the work that you're doing. Thank you for that, because your work is important. And sometimes it can feel very lonely being out there doing fundraising or advocacy or running your own nonprofit. And I feel you. Please reach out to me. I'm on LinkedIn. Connect with me, and we hope that you'll keep in touch.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kimberly. There's lots of thank yous flooding into the chat saying that this was super helpful, super informative. Carrie said this was one of the most informative webinars I've attended in a long time. So wanted to give an extra thank you to you, Kimberly. And then I did also just put up a quick poll on the screen for folks. You know, if you're looking to make some of these changes, if you want tools that have predictive analytics built in, have that automation, that omni-channel marketing, those videos capabilities, and you want to explore Bonterra, you can also feel free to scan the QR code. We'd love to chat with you about some of the work you're doing and how we might be able to help you innovate, maybe take one of those next risks, look at something new and different as part of that next step for this year. So we'd love to connect with you, but really definitely get in touch with Kimberly. As I told you all at the beginning, she's a wealth of knowledge. And I think that there was so much here today and so much great information, and really appreciate you, Kimberly, taking some time as well out of your day and schedule to present to this group. I hope it was really valuable for you all.